Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and this is part 2 of my review of episode 5 of season 3 of Star Trek Discovery. I gave my overall thoughts on the episode in my previous review in part 1, and now I'm going to get into all the details. So I really love the beginning of the episode when they find Starfleet, which is hiding together in some kind of bubble, which I guess is kind of a shared cloaking field, maybe even shields, and so they're protecting each other, and that whole setup kind of reminds me of an episode of the original animated show, as well as an episode of Voyager when a bunch of ships were stuck together in some kind of small space, all of them together, and so it kind of has that similarity. And I did enjoy when they showed like all the different new types of ships and all of that, and they show the crew are amazed by that, and so this is definitely the best part of the episode, maybe one of the best scenes of the whole show this season, because it finally felt like Starfleet again, like Star Trek, like uplifting, futuristic, hopeful, all of those good things. And so seeing all those new starship designs and all of that, it all looked good. And so I really started hoping maybe it's finally returning to what Star Trek is supposed to be. Maybe they'll finally do it right. So I was really enjoying the first scene of the episode. And I kept praying, don't screw it up, don't make them evil, don't make them evil, don't make them evil. And then they show the Admiral and the Starfleet are all nasty now, and they're not totally evil, but they're kind of dicks, they're assholes. And so I was really annoyed by that, and there was no reason for it. That's why it annoys me even more, because, if it was used for the purpose of the story, then maybe I could justify it, but there was no point to it. Like, there was no reason to make them so nasty toward the Discovery crew. It doesn't change anything about the rest of the story, and so why do that? It only serves to annoy me and probably other fans as well, because it's like watching a bastardized version of Star Trek. So, watching Star Trek in which every single admiral and every single other ship are nasty people, that destroys the idea of Starfleet, maybe even more than just saying they all blew up, or if they said that the ships they find now in the beginning are not really Starfleet, they are the bad guys, maybe the real Starfleet is still somewhere else, and so simply delaying that hopefulness, the return to the real Star Trek, I would have been more okay with than this, because this is the real Starfleet, this is how they are now, and just deal with it. So that's what the episode is doing. So everybody in the whole galaxy, all of Starfleet are nasty, evil people now, and so why should we be rooting for them even? Like, I don't care about this Starfleet anymore. They even said they're no longer doing exploration, and so this is not really Star Trek anymore. This is kind of a Battlestar Galactica kind of universe in which, Starfleet is hiding out and just trying to survive and all of that, and that could be an interesting story, but there was no reason not to at least show some glimpse of the old Starfleet. Like, the only thing I liked is that they are still kind of doing good things, like they're shooting those aliens and all of that. So we do have some glimpse that this is Starfleet as like it's supposed to be, but it was still overly nasty for no reason. If they simply didn't add this nastiness, I would have liked this episode. I would have said this was great, this is a return to proper Starfleet, Star Trek, but instead they make everything nasty again. So I talked about that a lot in part 1, so I don't want to repeat myself, so let's go into all the details. I did like some of the more advanced technology, like one scene toward the end when they're walking in the corridor and the floor is kind of forming below them, and so that's the whole idea of that programmable matter that they established in the previous episodes. And that scene kind of reminds me of that Magneto scene in the first X-Men movie when he was walking and the corridor was forming as he's walking in it. And the special effect itself was good, and also all the tables are floating with anti-gravity and all of that. That is something I like, and so a lot of the special effects in this episode were actually good, and everything's bright in Starfleet headquarters and all of that. So visually I thought it looked good, but all the personalities were terrible, of course. And there were some ridiculous stuff that I didn't like, especially those holograms who sounded weird, like they have that echo in their voice, and so I guess it's to be able to tell they are holograms, but even the 24th century holograms could speak totally normally, that you couldn't even tell that it's a real person or not, and yet here all the holograms are obviously holograms, they have strange voices, they don't blink, and so the only explanation is that maybe that was kind of a deliberate restriction was put on them, maybe so that people can always tell when they're talking with a hologram or not, so that's the only way to explain that. And there was that ridiculous scene when Georgiou was kind of toying with them by blinking, and she managed to confuse them, and they all shut off because of her blinking. That's probably the worst part of the episode, simply totally ridiculous. I mean, she's from the past as well, and the Terran Empire's technology was pretty much on the same level as Starfleet's, because there was a lot of parallels. So how can she possibly know how to defeat holograms which are centuries more advanced, and so that made no sense. And there was that guy with the glasses who they never explained, but I guess he managed to kind of brainwash her in the end. I guess we'll find out in the next episodes. I did kind of like him because he seemed like an actual smart character, and he's the only one who gave any kind of information to us, the audience, and everything he said did fit continuity. The only thing I didn't like about him is the glasses. Like, I kind of hoped maybe they would reveal maybe he's also from the mirror universe or something like that, then that would explain it, but he just said he wants to look smart, and so he wears glasses, who look kind of suspiciously similar to the glasses that Kurtzman is wearing, so maybe he said to the writers, invent a character who is the smartest one in the whole show, and make him look like me. So that was kind of ridiculous, but at least he was a clever character who managed to actually do something. So he's the only character I actually kind of liked in this whole episode. And then Michael starts telling the medical doctors how to treat their alien patients because, she's 900 years in the future, but she's going to teach the doctors of this time period how to do their job. Come on, Discovery, this is one of the things that drive me nuts in this show. No logic at all. She knows how to treat those aliens better than the doctors of today. And one way to make it work would have been to say that maybe the humans in the future rely on their AI helpers so much that they forgot to do the science themselves, kind of like that planet Aldea in TNG, which was more advanced than the Federation, but all the humans there became idiots basically because they relied on their computer to do everything for them, and the computer was kind of limited, and so all the people became stupid and didn't know how to fix their own computer. So, if they had a similar kind of setting, then that would have been an interesting way, and also make it plausible, maybe show that they are so reliant on their medical holograms or those robots flying around that the humans themselves don't know anything anymore, and so maybe, have that whole element of humans versus machines, that machines maybe are very clever, but they don't have intuition, they cannot think outside the box, and then the crew of the Discovery can do that, and so that would be impressive, that would make it interesting and plausible. And yet they didn't do that. So Michael is simply better than the doctors of the future. And then to cure the disease, they have to find a 23rd century ship which carries a vault with all the seeds from the entire galaxy. And that line pissed me off because in the 23rd century they only explored a fraction of the galaxy. Even in the 24th century they said they only explored 11% of the whole galaxy. So I don't like it. This show has been doing that from the start. They always say the entire galaxy, we are exploring the entire galaxy and all of that. So it doesn't fit continuity, and that's still something because this ship is from the past, and they mention specifically this ship from the 23rd century. So why do they say from the entire galaxy? And also later on they treat the ship as if it's kind of one of a kind thing, and I'm thinking, how come in all this time no one bothered to make copies? Like no one bothered to take some of the seeds to some other place? No, all the seeds from the entire galaxy, from all the planets in the galaxy, are on this one ship, which is ancient. Like they never bothered to update it to a newer ship. So I found that also kind of stupid. And these are the problems that can be easily fixed with a small change in the dialogue. If she simply said, that ship carries the seeds of the plants from all the known galaxy, that would have been okay. But no, she said it carries the seeds of every single plant from the whole galaxy. Come on. And then in the end they leave it be. Like they don't even pick up anything else from it. Like why not take some of the seeds, some copies, whatever you can carry on the Discovery, take it also. No, they just leave that ship alone, and they get rid of Yum Yum Lady, which I say to that, good riddance. She decides to stay on the ship, even though what's the problem to take that vault to Starfleet headquarters, or can they simply take all those seeds? Maybe there are too many, so do a few jumps, and so they just had to leave her on the ship to keep it safe, I guess. And again they show the clouds in space with lightning storms in them, and that's something I talked about in a previous review that always annoys me because it makes no sense. And I'm okay with showing like beautiful shots in space. It doesn't have to be just stars with no background all the time. And the old shows like TNG also used to show us beautiful shots of some kind of nebula in the far distance, and that made sense. That's how it would look like, and that you can still make it beautiful without making it unscientific and ridiculous. And yet in this show it's always clouds that are obviously very close to the camera and all around the ship, and with lightning storms in them, and so that's not how space works, and that always pisses me off. And also, even if not for this unscientificness of all of it, it got old in my opinion. Like I'm tired of seeing the same exact kind of special effects in this show. Why not invent something new for a change, or show some real anomaly? that really do exist out in space. That would be more interesting at this point. So anyway, Starfleet allows them to go on this mission, and but it puts that security officer lady on the ship, and she keeps kind of observing everyone, and she really reminds me of that annoying lieutenant from the first season, the one who was Lorca's most loyal servant on the ship, and she was super nasty all the time, and so this one kind of reminds me of that. I don't see why they feel the need to keep showing us characters that we hate. Unless you want to set up some kind of sweet revenge, like if you show up a villain and you make us hate that villain because there will be some kind of downfall of that villain, which will be fun to see, then maybe it will be worth it. But in this case, they're not really the villains, they're just nasty people. So what's the point of doing this? It's not fun to watch this. You know, at least that lady from the first season, she got killed off pretty early, and that was a happy moment because she was so nasty that when she got killed off, that was nice, and yet here they don't do anything, and so they're simply nasty for no reason, and the episode didn't need that for the story. They could have all been nice people, they could have shown a nice Starfleet that welcomes them from the start, and then they go on the mission, and then it wouldn't really change anything about the episode, and it would make the episode more pleasant to watch. So when this lady is on the bridge and they do their sport jump, Michael tells her, hold on to something, but then she doesn't, she just stands there, and then after the jump they show as if she's nauseated or something. So at least it explains that problem I had in an earlier episode when I said, how did Book know that they were spinning when they did the jump? Because they were never able to see that on the view screen, so I guess they can feel it somehow. So that kind of solves that little problem. But why did she not hold on to something if they actually feel the effects of the spinning? So anyway, they said that all the seeds from the entire galaxy are on that one ship, and then they show the ship and it's tiny, and that kind of made me laugh. So all the plans from the entire galaxy, and it's all on such a tiny ship with no backup. Come on. I did like some of the lines about the Barzans, the species of that Yum Yum lady, and they correctly said that they joined the Federation in the 26th century, and I was relieved to hear that because, as I said in my older review of the show, that her being in Starfleet didn't really make sense because in TNG they said that the Barzans are not in the Federation and they seem to be more primitive, and so I was complaining about that, and so here at least they acknowledge that she's kind of the only one in Starfleet, and that only much later her people joined the Federation, so that actually fit continuity, so I will give them points for that. And when they go over to that ship, its life support systems were designed for her people because a family of the same species as her were the one looking over that ship at the time, and then she can remove her breathing apparatus, and also her eyes look normal in that atmosphere, which also explains the continuity issue with TNG, because in TNG they didn't have those same eyes as she did, so that kind of explains that issue maybe. And then the rest of the crew has to wear what looks like force field bubbles around their heads so that they can breathe normally. And this is kind of a continuity issue because we never saw anything like that in TOS. I guess in the animated show we did see that they have some kind of force field around the whole body, and I made a whole video about that topic once, and I implied that maybe they always had it, we simply didn't see it normally. They always had kind of a life support force field around them, and that's why they could always go on any planet. So maybe it's okay. On the other hand, they had a perfect opportunity to simply say that they got some upgrades from this new Starfleet, and that's why they have all these new gimmicks now, and that can basically solve all these kind of continuity problems in terms of technology. Simply say that Discovery got upgrades from this new Starfleet, and yet they never said that, and that's a missed opportunity. I think that's the perfect way to explain at least all the technological continuity issues, and so maybe it happened off screen, maybe even when they were back at Earth, maybe they got some upgrades, maybe Michael brought some new information to the ship when she first met them again, and maybe the sphere data is doing upgrades for the ship, but that should have been mentioned, and then I could no longer complain about it whenever they have some super duper technology which they shouldn't have from the 23rd century. So this is one way I can easily explain that. They simply got an upgrade from any of the sources I mentioned, and so that's why I'm kind of okay with this scene of them having that kind of life support bubble around their head, which I guess kind of turns invisible. They show it at first and then it's not visible anymore. So that kind of reminds me of that whole video I made on this topic of personal force fields, and maybe they always had that kind of thing even in the older shows, and that would explain why they almost always go to other planets without any problem, because maybe they always had that kind of limited protection, and only in extreme conditions they had to wear the full body suit if they go into total vacuum and all of that, and maybe for safety because they cannot rely on that force field. So that is a topic I made a whole video on. I will link it in the end. And so that's why I don't really mind what they showed us, with those breathing bubbles around their heads. And then they meet that guy whose family died on the ship and he froze them and he tries to find a cure. That kind of reminds me of Dr. Freeze from the Batman franchise, so I guess they kind of borrowed that idea from there. And so that guy is trying to find a way to revive them using all those plants on the ship. And he also had some kind of transporter accident, and that made him phased, and so he's going over the ship like a ghost. It's like they were trying to do like a haunted ship story with this ghost who goes over the ship because he wants to save his family, like Mr. Freeze wanted to save his frozen wife and all of that. I think this could have been an interesting idea, but it wasn't really done that impressively, and as always there's a lot of scenes of people crying and all of that, and this show is always trying to be so emotional, and Michael of course is crying in every single episode, and so that got a little bit old, I think, because as I said in part 1, I would so much prefer to watch a relaxed episode about something nice, some humoristic episode, some comedy episode for a change, and not every episode has to be so heavy and so emotional every time, and so a guy loses the entire family, so he's crying, and then Michael has to comfort him. Also, it was funny how only Michael can convince him to help, because, everybody else tried to talk with him, and they cannot succeed. Only when Michael talks with him, and she says the exact same things as the Yum Yum lady, and suddenly he's convinced, because it's Michael, so she's the best at everything. So that, again, it was annoying. Like, the doctor, again, volunteers her to do it. Like, he's there as well. He didn't even try, but he says, no, Michael is the only one who can do it. And then Michael goes over, and then immediately that guy agrees to help. So, ridiculous. And the Yum Yum lady decides to stay on the ship for some reason which was not properly explained, and then she doesn't even say goodbye to anyone else in the crew, and they just leave her there, and that's it. So, she's supposed to somehow get that ship back to her home planet without warp drive, I guess, and so maybe it was close by to her planet, so fine, I don't really care about this character, so good riddance, I guess. And in the next episode, we're apparently going to get a ripoff of that movie, The Running Man, because they show us a clip of Book inside some kind of futuristic prison, and people try to escape from it, and whenever someone crosses a fence, his head blows up, and so that's exactly like in the movie The Running Man with Arnold. So I guess that's going to be a ripoff of that, because this show is always doing that. This show always borrows ideas from other movies and other shows, and it adds very few original ideas, and that's one of my complaints about the show. So that's all I had to say about it for now. Let me know what you think, and we can discuss it in the comment section below, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.